Sophie was a history professor who had spent most of her life in libraries and lecture halls. She loved her work, but sometimes she dreamed of living the stories she taught. One day, an old, dusty letter arrived at her office. It was from her late grandfather, a man who had traveled the world in search of ancient artifacts. The letter was intriguing. In it, her grandfather spoke of a secret journal he had hidden in their family's countryside house. The journal, he claimed, contained clues to the location of a forgotten medieval castle buried in the woods of northern Europe. Sophie's heart raced as she read the letter. This was more than just history. This was an adventure. That weekend, Sophie packed her bags and headed to the old countryside house where she had spent her childhood summers. The house was quiet and smelled of aged wood and memories. She searched the attic, digging through boxes of photographs and books, until she found the leather-bound journal her grandfather had described. Inside, there were sketches, maps, and cryptic notes. One phrase stood out: "The castle hides where the river bends." With the journal in hand, Sophie booked a flight to northern Europe. She landed in a small town surrounded by dense forests and winding rivers. She rented a bicycle and began her journey, following the maps and clues in the journal. Along the way, she met a local guide named Lucas, who offered to help her navigate the challenging terrain. "This area is full of legends," Lucas said as they cycled through a path lined with towering pine trees. "People say there are hidden castles, but no one has ever found them." "Maybe they haven't looked hard enough," Sophie replied with a grin. The days were long and tiring, but Sophie felt more alive than she had in years. She and Lucas followed the river, stopping to study the bends and curves, comparing them to the sketches in the journal. One afternoon, they stumbled upon a local farmer who spoke of strange ruins deep in the woods. "It's just old stones," the farmer said, "but some say they're part of a castle wall." Excited, Sophie and Lucas decided to investigate. They trekked through the dense forest, their boots crunching on leaves and twigs. As they ventured deeper, the trees thinned and they found themselves in a clearing. There, partially covered in moss and vines, were the remains of ancient stone walls. Sophie's breath caught. "This must be it," she whispered. The walls were crumbling, but they still stood tall enough to suggest the grandeur the castle once held. Sophie and Lucas spent hours exploring the ruins, finding old carvings and even what appeared to be a well. But the most exciting discovery came when Sophie noticed a small archway leading underground. "Do you think it's safe?" Lucas asked, shining his flashlight into the darkness. "There's only one way to find out," Sophie said, her voice filled with determination. They descended cautiously, the air growing cooler as they moved deeper. The tunnel opened into a chamber with high ceilings and walls adorned with faded murals. At the center of the chamber was a pedestal, and on it rested a metal box. Sophie's hands trembled as she opened the box. Inside, she found a collection of scrolls, each one meticulously written in medieval Latin. They appeared to be records of the castle's history, detailing its rise and fall, its battles, and its secrets. "This is incredible," Sophie said, her eyes shining. These scrolls could rewrite parts of history. Over the next few days, Sophie and Lucas carefully documented everything they found. Sophie contacted a team of archaeologists who joined them to preserve the site and study the artifacts. The discovery made headlines, and Sophie's name became known not just as a historian, but as an adventurer. As the excavation continued, Sophie discovered another hidden passage behind a collapsed wall. It led to a smaller chamber where an intricately designed key was found. The key matched an engraving in the journal that hinted at a secret archive hidden within the castle grounds. The team worked tirelessly to uncover the archive, and their efforts revealed an underground library filled with centuries-old manuscripts. The manuscripts contained detailed maps, letters between nobles, and even personal diaries from people who had lived in the castle. One diary belonged to a young scribe who had recorded the castle's final days before it was abandoned. Sophie was particularly fascinated by an entry that described a lost artifact, a jeweled chalice believed to bring peace to warring kingdoms. The scribe's note suggested the chalice had been hidden to protect it from invaders. "Do you think it's still here?" Lucas asked as they studied the diary. "If it is, we'll find it," Sophie replied. Her determination grew stronger with each discovery. One evening, while exploring the outer edges of the castle grounds, Sophie and Lucas stumbled upon a cave partially obscured by overgrown vines. Inside, they found a series of carvings on the walls that seemed to depict the chalice and its journey. Following the carvings deeper into the cave, they discovered a hidden chamber where a pedestal stood in the center, covered in dust and cobwebs. On the pedestal rested the jeweled chalice, its gemstones reflecting the light of their flashlights. "We found it," Sophie whispered, her voice filled with awe. Carefully, they documented the find and contacted the team to preserve the artifact. The chalice became the centerpiece of the castle's exhibition, drawing scholars and visitors from around the world. Sophie felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing she had uncovered a piece of history that would inspire generations to come. The excavation revealed even more mysteries. Hidden beneath the castle's foundations was an intricate system of tunnels that connected to other ruins in the region. These tunnels hinted at an ancient network used for trade or communication. Sophie and the team mapped the tunnels, discovering artifacts that spanned centuries and linked different cultures. One day, while exploring a particularly deep tunnel, Sophie found a sealed chamber. Inside, there were ornate chests filled with coins, jewelry, and ceremonial objects. Among them was a crown encrusted with emeralds, which matched descriptions in the scrolls of a legendary ruler who once united rival kingdoms. As Sophie studied the artifacts, she felt a profound connection to the people who had lived centuries before her. "History isn't just dates and facts," she said to Lucas. "It's the story of humanity, our struggles, triumphs, and dreams." Months later, Sophie returned home, but her adventures were far from over. Inspired by her discoveries, she began planning her next expedition, this time to the deserts of the Middle East, where her grandfather's journal hinted at the existence of a lost city buried under the sands. In the years that followed, Sophie's name became synonymous with exploration and discovery. She uncovered ruins in jungles, deserts, and even underwater. Her work not only enriched the historical record, but also inspired a new generation of adventurers and historians. Through it all, Sophie never forgot the castle that started it all. Every so often, she would visit the ruins, walking through the halls and remembering the moment she first stepped into the underground chamber. It was a reminder that the greatest adventures often begin with a single step into the unknown, and the courage to follow where the path leads. Sophie's reputation eventually brought her an invitation to join an international team of explorers searching for a mythical temple in the dense Amazon rainforest. The temple was said to hold ancient carvings that predated even the oldest known civilizations. Excited by the challenge, Sophie accepted and soon found herself trekking through humid jungles, battling insects, and crossing treacherous rivers. During the expedition, Sophie befriended a botanist named Elena, who was studying rare plants in the area. Together, they uncovered not only historical relics, but also evidence of how ancient cultures used the surrounding flora for medicine and rituals. Sophie marveled at how interconnected history, nature, and science could be. After weeks of searching, the team discovered the temple, hidden beneath layers of moss and vines. Inside, they found carvings that depicted celestial maps, suggesting that the civilization had advanced knowledge of astronomy. Sophie documented everything meticulously, knowing these findings could reshape the understanding of early human civilizations. Each discovery added another layer to Sophie's incredible journey. Whether in the depths of a jungle, the sands of a desert, or the ruins of a forgotten castle, Sophie proved that history was more than a subject to be studied. It was a world waiting to be explored.